Hit harder, run faster, be smarter, be tougher. That's it. Well, at least that's what worked for me to get from 3.5 to 4.0. But for the rest of this video, I'm going to break down each one of these into categories of mental, physical, emotional, technical, and financial. My mental state at this point was, alright, I want to get back into tennis, but I haven't touched a tennis racket in 6 years. What do I do? So my mindset was, alright, I need to start practicing and set a goal. And that goal was, alright, get to 4.0. I still had the chip on my shoulder from high school. My coach promised me I was going to play state tennis my junior and senior year, but he pulled the rug out from under me and I didn't get to play at all. I just sat on the bench the whole time. Looking back on that kind of lit a fire within me, and I wanted to prove to myself I could be a good tennis player. I was hungry for competition and I was hungry to win. Technical. I have some basics down, but it felt like I was starting from scratch again. In my head, I was thinking, alright, what do the pros have and higher level players have that I don't have? Well, first off, a lot of things. But one thing I pinpointed was they hit harder consistently. I wanted to make my shots more powerful and consistent as well. My method for training this was actually using the ball machine. I first worked on my basic angles. Hitting cross court deep into the corners, hitting sharper cross court shots near the service line, and hitting deep into the corners down the line as well. Before, my technique was basically just get the ball over the net. So training with the ball machine and practicing those shots greatly improved my game from what it used to be. Since the ball machine feeds consistently, it allows you to dive deep into your technique to see what you're doing. If my feet are this way, how does it affect the ball? If my hips rotate this way, what does it do to my shots? That kind of stuff. The ball machine gives you immediate feedback. Because when you're practicing with a fellow player or just a friend, the balls are not going to be fed as fast, as many, or as consistent. So sometimes you're trying to just figure out your basic ground stroke of, hey, this ball is here perfectly every time, but if someone is feeding you a ball that's all over the place every single time, you're not going to improve your technique as well until you're at a higher level where, hey, you want variation in the shots coming at you. So what I would do to hit the ball harder, I would just hit the ball at maximum effort every single time until the ball machine was empty. Major tip though, warm up. Don't just start hitting balls at Mach 10, otherwise you're going to hurt yourself, like I did. After doing this for about 3 months or so, my basic shots really improved, and now I hit the ball harder consistently. Physical. I was going to the gym regularly, but I wasn't doing anything fancy. Just some weights, some cardio, and some stretching. That's about it. Take care of your body, people. You only get one. I noticed playing higher level people, the matches would go longer, roughly over the 2-hour mark sometimes. I recently had a match where my calf and my thigh cramped up at the same time. Part of the problem was I didn't hydrate myself 2 to 3 days before my match, and we were playing outside in the sun over that 2-hour mark. I actually had to forfeit the match because I was going to just keep hurting myself if I kept playing. Working out a little bit, stretching, and taking care of your body helps you in hitting harder and keeping you from injury. Financial. So for gear, I bought myself a brand new Wilson Pro Staff, and that was about $270. You don't need a new racket to become a better player. Looking back, I could have just used my tennis racket I had from high school or buy a cheaper used racket, because what I should have done is just used the demo programs to really find a racket that fits my style and save that money to either practice more or get coaching, or save up and buy a new racket that actually fits me later on and just make do with the one I have. Tennis shoes I had were $120, and I had to pay for the USTA yearly subscription, and that was about $40. For one of the local leagues I was in, it was 25 bucks for 15 matches, which I think is a pretty good deal. So let's add this up for gear / one-time buys-ish. So 455. So for practice, I was doing the ball machine about 3 times a week. I also did a Saturday morning clinic for an hour. That was about 15 bucks. But that's with a large group of people and a couple coaches. So you only get about half the practice time since it's not a one-on-one. Roughly 1 tennis match a week. So let's take 87 times those 4 weeks in the first month. This is scaring me how much I spent on tennis the first couple months in. 803 bucks. Okay, I didn't know I spent that much the first month of tennis. Anyway, you don't have to do it this way. This is just what worked for me and worked for my budget. The only thing I will say is you have to invest in yourself if you want to get better at anything, really. Alright, so number 2, run faster. There's nothing more intimidating than when a player reaches a ball that they shouldn't have gotten to. Mentally, the problem I had every time I saw a ball that was out of my reach, I would just give up. I wouldn't chase it. I had reinforced the habit in my mind that, oh hey, if the ball is this far away, I can't reach it. When in reality, there's a chance you can reach it. Emotional. I did not want to run fast. Sprinting sucks. But I do remember one game where I was in the zone and I chased down a ball that I should not have gotten to, and I got it. That got me excited. And in my head, I was like, alright, I need to train this. So I called up my good pal, Mr. Ball Machine, and I got to work. My method sucks. I would set the ball machine to all positions on the court and hit random. What I would try to do was hit every ball back and empty the ball machine as well. There were practices where I almost threw up because of all the sprinting. This forced me to chase down every ball even though I might not reach it. It gave me a way better chance to return the ball even when I was tired. Basically, it's endurance training and sprinting, but it gives you a mindset of, oh hey, I can get to that ball, versus just giving up. I saw in my game during matches, when you're fresh, when you're ready to play, you're warmed up, and someone hits a ball that's slightly out of your reach, you'll find that you will be able to reach it because you did the training of, oh hey, I'm tired and I'm forcing myself to get to the ball anyway. Financial. Again, it's the ball machine. It's about 22 bucks for an hour. You can do that to really train, to get your strokes in, and do the sprinting at the same time. If not, alternatives are you can just go outside and practice sprinting back and forth between rough landmarks of what a court size is. Or you can even just go to an open track or field and practice sprints there. I really don't care. Those are just different alternatives if you don't want to spend money on a ball machine. Number 3, be smarter. Think about your time. I had to give up a bunch of things to focus on tennis. I gave up volleyball, I didn't hang out with friends as much, video games, eating out, stuff like that. I knew if I wanted to get better, I needed to play people who were better than me. I needed to play 4-0 players. Thankfully, the USTA league I was in, I had opportunities to play 4-0 players. Outside of that, I just asked around who wanted to play that I knew was better than me. I also made some cool connections that way. Emotional. Even though I was hungry to win, when I lost or won, I pulled info from those matches to learn from it. I needed an open mind to learning more tennis, even though all I wanted to do was pummel my opponents into the ground. After every match, I would go over the good and bad of what happened in that match. Technical. Keeping track of tennis strategies and playing styles. Is this guy a moonballer? Does he have a powerful serve? Is my opponent just playing mind games on me? After keeping track of that in your head or even writing it down, you then equip yourself with shots that can counterattack different types of players. This gives you the ability to outplay different opponents. Major tip: when you practice, practice. When you compete, compete. Don't try to practice when you're competing. Work with what you have and focus at the match at hand. Financial. This depends on you of whether or not you can afford a coach or other lessons. I did go to a few private lessons just to learn some more stuff. I actually had a time where I wanted to learn a one-handed backhand, but thanks to a coach, I quickly found out that it was terrible for my arm and I was not very good at it. It didn't fit my playing style either. If you have the budget to go to a coach, I would highly suggest that. It just depends how serious you are about getting better at tennis. Now for me, I didn't want to pay for a consistent coach. And just at the point of time in my life, I just wanted a ball machine because I think the past coach still stung a little bit, so I didn't want any coaches at all. Another thing I just thought of is if you're giving up some activities like volleyball, going out to the bars with friends, or video games, or eating out, it might actually save you money because you're not spending money on all of those other activities. Number 4, be tougher. What helps me mentally is having a warm-up routine before my matches. I actually have a short version and a long version of this warm-up, partly because sometimes when I'm at tournaments and stuff, you get rain delays, so you don't know when you're playing, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, go out and play, and you're like, oh shoot, I got like 2 minutes to get my mind together. For my full warm-up, what I like to do is a slight jog, a handful of push-ups, leg kicks, lunges, karaokes, a number of stretches, and a prayer before I do my match. I also have a instrumental playlist that I listen to while I do this warm-up. For me, it's hype music, but it's instrumental. The words distract me sometimes, but being able just to have some kind of rhythm with no words puts me into kind of a meditative state. This gives me hyper focus on the upcoming match. Emotional. Never throw your racket. Respect yourself, the opponent, and your racket. It's a privilege to be able to go out on the court and play. I have thrown my racket a total of 3 times, and each one of those times I lost those matches. Why? Because my opponent just saw me chuck my racket like a javelin thrower. They now know I'm flustered and angry, and they'll take advantage of that. Don't give them any advantages. I found that being tougher with my emotions on the court usually helps me win, or at least have good sportsmanship with the other opponents. The more you play, the better you will get. Build up your calluses in your hands, in your feet, and in your mind. Who's gonna carry the votes? Stay hard. Tennis can break you down. So just make sure that your gear is also tough and you can withstand the level of play you are at. So for example, if your tennis shoes are ripped to shreds, get new tennis shoes or else you're gonna beat up your feet or roll your ankle. Say your tennis strings are wearing out and you're playing a match and they break and you don't have a backup racket. You now either have to borrow one from your opponent, which is probably completely different from the racket that you have, or you have to forfeit the match because you have no racket. Now, kind of obvious, but the more practices I did, the more matches I played, the better I got, and it fast-tracked me to getting to 4-0. Financial. If I could go back to when I bought my racket at the start of the season, I would have saved my money and just used my high school racket instead. I bought 2 Wilson Pro staffs, which now thinking of the financial bit I did earlier, it would have costed more. Anyway, that was expensive. I wasted money trying to resell some of those rackets. Instead, what I should have done is just use the racket that I had already and save that money to buy a racket more suited for me down the road, or just get a ball hopper or a case of tennis balls and just go practice on some open tennis courts. That would have benefited me more than buying a brand new racket. Or I could use that money to get more coaching, or to do more clinics, or just go hit with better level players. It really sounds like I need to be tougher on my financial stuff as a whole. Major tip: if you outgrow the clinic you're going to weekly, just stop going. Save that money for other stuff. So after a time, I stopped going to those clinics and used that money to rent courts instead, to invite better players to play with me, because I was renting out the court with my own money. I found that kind of as a, hey, I know you're better than me, but I really want to practice. I will pay for the court. It's like a nice gesture, you know? This pushed me to get out of my comfort zone and to take my tennis more seriously. So that's what I got. That's how I got from 3.5 to 4.0 in a single year. The 4 things I did was learn how to hit harder, run faster, be smarter, and be tougher. This is just the way I did it. Hopefully you got some tips and tricks on how to improve your game. In the meantime, I have a lot of work to do on my own tennis game, and if you ever end up playing me, just go for my backhand, because it's absolutely trash.